Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever started learning a new language, like Spanish, French, or Japanese, and after just a couple of weeks, you literally feel like your brain is completely exhausted, like physically wiped out? Most of us just think, well, that means I'm bad at languages, right? Or maybe I just don't have that natural talent. But in today's explainer, we're going to look at some absolutely fascinating science that proves this mental exhaustion is definitely not a failure. Actually, it's undeniable proof that your brain is physically changing.
So why does learning feel so exhausting right at the start? It's the most common hurdle for sure, so we really have to ask the question to figure out what's going on. To wrap your head around this, you've got to realize that right now, as you're sitting here listening to me, your brain is acting as a perfectly wired, high-speed machine for your native tongue. Every single sound, every grammar rule, every word you speak just shoots through these established neural highways so incredibly fast that you don't even have to think about it.
But the precise second you try to learn a new language, that perfectly paved native language highway suddenly turns into a muddy, bumpy dirt road. Honestly, your brain essentially turns into glitchy jello. You are no longer cruising on a smooth highway. Instead, you're forcing your brain to forge entirely new paths across totally uncharted territory. And the amazing thing here is that initial mental struggle, that glitchy jello state, is literally the single best biological workout your brain can possibly get.
So throughout this explainer, we're basically going on a biological expedition together. We'll trace this physical transformation across 6 steps: the initial brain shock, growing new gray matter, the white matter superhighway, upgrading executive function, the ultimate cognitive shield, and finally, how to learn faster. All right, starting with step 1, the initial brain shock. This is your prefrontal cortex in total panic mode.
See, when you hear an unfamiliar word for the very first time, your brain actually treats it like a threat. It goes on high alert, kind of like a server room during a total blackout. Wernicke's area and Broca's area, which are your primary language processing hubs, they start working overtime on pure raw horsepower. Since you don't have those established pathways for the new language yet, your brain relies really heavily on your prefrontal cortex, basically the CEO of your brain, just to decode everything. You're rapidly draining your glucose reserves just to hold a simple 2-word phrase together. And honestly, this is exactly why a mere 20-minute language lesson can leave you feeling physically tired. It is just an overwhelming electrical overload.
Moving right into phase 2, growing new gray matter, the biological construction project. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is
How after a few weeks of that initial panic, your brain actually stops panicking and completely changes its strategy by initiating neuroplasticity. This is simply your brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout your entire life. For a very long time, scientists mistakenly believed this magical ability just sort of disappeared after childhood. They thought the adult brain was fixed and rigid. But today, we know that's completely false. As an adult, you can continually build and rewire new pathways every single day you practice.
To really prove this, we can look at the data from a very famous study involving the Swedish Armed Forces Interpreter Academy. Researchers took MRI scans of university medical students to act as a control group and compared them alongside military recruits who were undergoing intense language learning. The results were absolutely undeniable. While the hardworking medical students showed no measurable structural brain change at all, the military language learners actually experienced significant physical growth in both the cerebral cortex and the hippocampus. The hippocampus is your brain's primary memory engine, and the harder these recruits studied, the larger their memory vault literally swelled and plumped up.
But here's the catch. Growing all that new gray matter simply isn't enough to make you fluent. Gray matter acts as the information processors. These are the neurons themselves, which, as we just saw, grow denser and plump up to handle the heavy load. But they really can't do it alone. The real magic of fluency relies on the white matter, which is the crucial cabling and insulation connecting all these processing regions together.
Which brings us to step 3, the white matter superhighway, upgrading your brain's internet.
Getting your brain's left and right hemispheres to seamlessly sync up requires a biological process called myelination. This is the process of coating your nerve fibers with a fatty insulation known as myelin. This is absolutely crucial because it speeds up electrical signals without allowing them to leak. It's literally like upgrading your brain's internal network from a slow, clunky dial-up connection to blazing fast fiber optic. The electrical ping between your brain cells travels so efficiently that advanced learners actually stop actively translating in their heads and begin to unconsciously feel the language.
And you might be wondering, how do we keep going when it's so hard at the beginning? Well, the reason this grueling process can actually become a bit addictive is due to what we call the dopamine hack. Whenever you correctly remember a new vocabulary word, your ventral striatum releases a massive hit of dopamine. Getting a translation right triggers the exact same chemical reward system in your brain as eating a piece of chocolate or getting a like on social media. This surge of dopamine acts as a biological glue, telling your hippocampus to lock in that new memory because, well, it just felt so rewarding.
All right, phase 4, upgrading executive function. This is where the mental cross-training really kicks in.
Once you start actively acquiring more vocabulary, you face an entirely new challenge. Managing multiple languages creates this micro-juggling effect in your brain. Think about it. When you want to speak your new language, you actually have to actively suppress the perfectly wired words of your native language. This constant mental micro-juggling provides a daily resistance training boost to your executive control system. And the benefits here are massive. Multilingual people consistently test higher for faster task switching, improved problem solving, much better filtering of distractions, enhanced working memory under pressure, and even higher creative thinking. You're literally training your brain to manage attention flawlessly.
Now for step 5, the ultimate cognitive shield, building your brain's backup generator. So the crucial point is,
All of this daily mental resistance training culminates in the single most important long-term health benefit of tackling a new language. You are actively building what scientists call cognitive reserve. Think of cognitive reserve as a robust backup neural network that allows your brain to seamlessly detour around damaged areas and function normally for much, much longer. Because you've built these massive, heavily insulated white matter tracks and deeply dense gray matter, your brain acts as a literal shield against aging. If amyloid plaques or tau tangles start to appear, your brain simply reroutes the signal around the roadblock using those alternative pathways you spent so much time building. The data backing this up is nothing short of staggering: 4 to 5 years. Lifelong bilingualism delays the onset of dementia and Alzheimer's symptoms by an average of 4 to 5 years compared to monolinguals. Now, to be incredibly clear about this, language learning doesn't guarantee you won't get the underlying physical pathology of the disease. What it does do is arm your brain with so much extra network capacity that you can fight off the symptoms and function completely normally for years longer.
Which leads us to our final section, how to learn faster, maximizing your brain's rewiring.
The really great news for all of us is that you definitely do not need to be completely fluent to trigger these structural benefits. Just basic conversational studies starts the process. You just have to know how to study effectively, and this brilliantly illustrates the difference between what works and what doesn't. Avoid the common traps, right? Don't just study grammar, don't fear making mistakes, and definitely stop trying to cram for 5 hours once a week. That is exactly why people quit. Instead, you want to speak early. Let every single correction strengthen your neuropathways, and study for just 20 minutes a day. The proven scientific reality is that consistency completely beats intensity, every single time.
let's rapidly break this down into 4 actionable steps you can execute today. Step 1, practice 15 to 20 minutes every single day. Step 2, review your vocabulary using spaced repetition to maximize that dopamine hack we talked about. Step 3, speak aloud instead of just reading silently, which actively engages Broca's area. And Step 4, immerse yourself deeply with things like podcasts and subtitled movies. When you start doing this and you feel that initial jello grain strain we mentioned earlier, I really want you to remember, that is simply the beautiful sound of your brain's architecture upgrading itself.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a direct and empowering question. What language will you build your brain with? Whether you're 15 or 85 years old, picking up a new language isn't just about travel or a fun hobby or business. It is an incredible, scientifically proven insurance policy for your mind. So pick a language, embrace the mud, and start rewiring.